Hello and welcome to R&R's Ask the Expert. I'm your host, Valerie King, R&R's editor-in-chief, and I'm joined today by John Anton, co-founder of Bioesk Solutions. Bioesk develops and distributes naturally occurring, botanically based disinfectant and cleaning products. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Thanks so much for joining me, John.
No, thank you. It's good to talk to you and see you again.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for being here. Now, for those who are listening, John is a return guest on Ask the Expert, you may notice. But if you haven't heard his initial episode with us and you're not familiar, John, can you start by sharing a little bit about your background and Bioesk's role in the restoration industry?
Sure. So I've been in the restoration industry as an owner of a restoration company for almost 20 years. I left that industry and went into the manufacturing of chemicals and cleaning products that are designed to help the professionals in the field in the restoration industry itself.
Thanks for that. So, last time you joined us, you talked about the early impacts of COVID-19 on business for you. I mean, you said you went from running 2 factories to 10 to address the surge in demand for your products. And as we record this, COVID isn't new, and the Delta variant is kind of on the rise. So I'm curious how this development is impacting demand for you guys.
Yeah, it is certainly. We've seen an uptick again in sales. I think the people as a whole have got a little lazy in their cleaning. When the pandemic started to slow down and we started to see the COVID-19 cases drop, I think people kind of got back to doing their normal cleaning and maybe not as much cleaning. And now that the Delta variant has started to rise and we're starting to see an uptick in COVID cases, you're starting to see people get back into the serious clean that they were doing before when the pandemic hit. So because of that, we're starting to see a lot more orders come in and things starting to get busy and people getting back to cleaning the way that we should be cleaning daily.
So, in general, are there any standout trends, developments, needs that you're seeing related to catastrophe restoration this year?
Sure. Yeah, I think the thing that we got to think about the most is being prepared. With the pandemic this past year, I think the thing that stood out the most is that the supply chain for products, not only disinfectant and cleaners, but also equipment that we need, dehumidifiers, fans, plastics, those things are hard to come by right now. And so in the past, the restoration industry's always been a react when something happens, and then they run for the stores to try to get all the equipment they have. And right now, there's just such a high demand for stuff and a low manufacturing of it because of the amount of raw materials that are available. I just think the restoration industry as a whole needs to go ahead and stock up on those things and not wait to the last minute and put all the stress onto the distributors who are trying to do their job and get it to them at the last minute. So I think being prepared is something that we really need the restoration industry to look at.
Okay, great point about being proactive. So, to follow up on that, is there a most notable catastrophe restoration project that you can share in which your offerings in Bioesks were put to use?
Yeah, there's one in particular that stands out. I got a call from a great friend. He's a good customer of ours named Kevin Woodard that was working on uh, he had an aviation facility that had a really bad flood. And they were concerned with what products they could use in there because it was airline parts. And so there had to be a product that was safe to go on these parts that wouldn't be damaging to the airline, because obviously we can't have things that compromise the structure of a plane or any of the components that go into it. So they called and asking us if there's something that we had that could be used. And obviously our product is approved for the airline industry and it's safe on all those materials. So they were able to clean the project, get the planes back in working orders cleaned so they could get them back on the line and put people up in the air.
Thank you. We do not hear stories about planes every day, so that's a really cool case study to share. All right, so we talked about COVID, we talked about cat season. Now, as we enter the last few months of 2020, I can't believe it's almost over. I'd love to gain your perspective on this past year. So, first question under that theme, um, is there a most memorable project in restoration overall from this year that you can highlight for us?
Yeah, so there's obviously been quite a few projects that come to mind, but I do remember getting a call from Brandon Lewis with Strategic Claims Consultants on a large project down in the Florida area. There was a group of hotels that had been impacted by a storm prior to that was sitting. They were having some issues with the adjusters and stuff getting together and trying to come up with a plan for it. And so it turned this actual project into a pretty significant mold job. So they were looking to have to clean the mold. They were having to look at do some coatings after the mold remediation was done. There was duct cleaners that were brought into it. So they had to have products that were safe to go through duct systems. There was a lot of glue from the glue down carpet that they couldn't get removed. So we had to bring in some of our adhesive removers as well. So it turned in to be about, it's probably a $7.5 to $10 million project that's still going on, that they're using, everything from our disinfectant to our paints and coatings to our adhesive removers. So that's been a really interesting project to be a part of and to see how it's going.
Still reflecting on 2021, what key lessons have you learned over the past year related to disinfectants and, of course, cleaning that restoration and remediation pros could benefit from?
The thing that sticks out the most is just reading the label and really getting to know the product that you're using, understand the cans and can-nots of that product, because there's a lot of people that are now getting into the kind of the restoration disinfectant business because of the COVID-19 pandemic, that are using the products wrong. So it's really important to understand what you're using and how to use it, and make sure you're protecting not only the people that are working for you, but the people you're working for.
Very important theme there. Definitely something we hear a lot about is the product overwhelm when it comes to cleaning and disinfecting, and just what's the right thing. So thanks for that. All right, so last question about looking back on this year. What's the biggest question and or misconception that you've received from the restoration industry? And of course, its answer.
Sure. So I still get this daily. I probably got it twice today already. How long does a product last on the surface is probably the number one question we get. And the answer is, for viruses, the EPA doesn't give a long-term efficacy for the product. There's been products out there that have kind of had some creative marketing, we'll call it, that have given people kind of false claims that the product will stay on the surface 30, 60, even 90 days, working against the virus, and that's just not the case. The EPA does not approve any product for a long-term efficacy. They're considered to be daily use products. You're supposed to clean as the surface gets soiled often. So that's been the biggest probably question we've had from folks, is how long does it last on the surface, and trying to get them to understand that's not an easy fix.
That's really intriguing. Thank you, because I'm sure people listening then had that same question, and that's a really important point. I learned something new. All right, so now looking ahead, what pandemic-driven thinking and practices does BioEsk plan to hold on to? What would you say is going to stick now that worlds have been flipped upside down from COVID-19?
Yeah, so for us, I said it earlier, it's, to expect the unexpected. Our goal is to stay ahead of the curve, stay ahead of the pandemic, stay ahead of the demand. We want to make sure our supplies are in stock. Last year during the whole pandemic, a lot of the other companies that are out there producing chemicals just ran out of raw materials. It was hard to get. So, we were able to stay ahead of that with our products. And so our biggest goal now is to make sure that we keep plenty of product in stock for those that are going to react when something happens, as well as planning to make sure that if this Delta variant continues to grow, that we'll have enough product on our shelves at all time that we can get product out quickly. The other thing is to make sure we keep our, the bottles and the boxes and everything else that goes along with it, because again, the supply chains and the raw materials are hard to get. So our biggest task right now is to make sure that we keep our stuff in stock so that everybody that needs it is able to get it in a timely manner.
All right. What about beyond the walls of BioEsk? I'm curious how you think COVID has changed the restoration industry overall and maybe more long term.
I think one thing that it's done is it's opened the eyes of not only the restoration industry, but the people the restoration industry is working for. That the restoration industry, they're true professionals. I mean, they are really, really good at what they do. They are not only here for fire and flood and water and mold. They're professional cleaners. They understand what it takes to set up a containment, to put things under negative pressure, and to do a deep clean. Even more so than the janitorial companies that are out there that are doing their general mopping and wiping down and dusting. The restoration industry is trained by groups like the IICRC that are out there giving people the knowledge to do what they do and do it well. And so I think that's the one thing that I've gotten from last year and going into this year is that this industry is the best cleaners out there.
I really like that. Thanks for sharing. All right, so still looking ahead, and while we're on that topic of looking ahead, I hear BioEsk recently welcomed a new addition to the family. Can you tell me more, John?
Yeah, we're super excited about this one. BJ Dubas came to us and started just a few weeks ago. He's been in the industry, worked for manufacturers and distributors for years, and is come on board with us. He's got great relationships. He's very, very, very knowledgeable with everything in this industry, and we're excited to have him on our team. He's a huge asset to us.
Congrats and welcome. All right, so what is next for BioEsk? Big question, but yeah, what comes to mind?
So we're entrepreneurs and innovators at BioEsk, and so we're constantly looking for the newer and greater things to go to market with. So we've got some products right now that we're working on. One that we just got an EPA approval on July the 12th. That we're waiting for all the state registrations to come through. That it's going to be a really cool product that we're excited to announce once we get all the state approvals. So, but yeah, I mean that's it. We're constantly looking to improve and constantly looking for new ideas to introduce the restoration industry to make this industry even better than it already is.
That sounds great, and congrats on the upcoming new product. All right, finally, I'm curious what advice you can share with restoration pros who are, as we talked about a little earlier, overwhelmed with the volume of disinfection products on the market. How on earth do they make the best buying decision?
That's a great question. I personally feel that looking for the safest products out there is only going to make it easier for them in working for the homeowners that they're working for and the business owners that they're working for, the schools, things like that. Ready to use products to me are important. When you start working with products that are concentrates, we rely on the people in the field to mix them correctly, and that sometimes can be a challenge. And if you overmix a product, it can be a problem. If you undermix a product, it can be a problem. So using ready-to-use products, disinfectants are a great idea because they're constantly going to be the same and there's no room for error. I think, again, just making sure that the restoration folks read the label. Again, I said it earlier, but it's so important to read the label and understand what you can do with the product, and don't overpromise and underdeliver.
Thank you. Okay, so are there any resources that you would point listeners to for kind of like checking the legitimacy of these solutions that they might be considering?
Yeah, obviously, you can go to the EPA website and look up the products there. They'll a little bit of navigating through it, but you can typically type in the product name or the EPA number and get the rundown on that product. The CDC also has guidelines for cleaning and products that you can use. So I think those two resources are the best things to go to: the EPA and also the CDC. They're the ones that are going to basically let you know what you can and can't do.
Well, thank you for your time and insight, John. That was great. Before we go, I do have one more question. Where can our listeners go to connect with you or learn more about BioEsk Solutions?
Yeah, so they can always go to our website at www.bioesksolutions.com. You can look at us on LinkedIn, Facebook, we're on there. I always welcome people to call me direct. I mean, my cell phone number is everywhere, and if people ever find it, they're welcome to call me. I carry it with me all the time. I'm a restoration guy, so it's with me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So any of those, we should be able to be found.
Love it. Thank you so much, John. Listeners and viewers, for more insights on restoration, remediation, and the people behind it all, visit our website, randrmagonline.com. You can also find information and more episodes on Apple or Spotify. And if you haven't yet, please be sure to follow the podcast to keep up with our latest episodes and give us a quick review and rating. We're also on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, so we invite you to follow us there too. This has been R&R's Ask the Expert. Thank you for listening.